Hi everyone. Now I want to talk in this video about gambling debts. Now, if you've been a gambler or a gambling addict for a significant period of time, the chances are you will have accumulated a large amount of debt. If you haven't, then brilliant. If you can stop gambling now, then you're going to save yourself a whole world of hurt. But if you haven't got any gambling debt, then this video probably isn't for you, and I'll catch you on the next one. But if, like me, you accumulated a substantial amount of gambling debt, in all honesty, I reckon around about £40,000 when I initially addressed my gambling. Now, what I want to do, this is going to be kind of an introduction video because I'm going to do a little series on this, which I've been meaning to do for ages. And the reason I'm recording this one in this vlog style is because otherwise I'm never actually going to get around to doing them. And it's very, very important because the stress of having all this debt is one of the factors that actually kept me gambling. There was two reasons really for that. Firstly, that's my go-to. You know, you're stressed, you have a bad day at work, you have an argument with your wife, anything. If you have an addiction, then your addiction will always be your go-to. It's where you go when you're stressed. And the other reason is because I was burying my head in the sand. All the time I was gambling, I wasn't necessarily gambling to try and get out of the debt, but I was just carrying on as normal. Carrying on as normal by keep gambling allowed me to keep my head buried. I was able to keep borrowing money. There was always somewhere, albeit with an higher and higher and higher APR every time I was borrowing. There was always somewhere that would lend me some money. So that enabled me to really keep my head buried in the sand and avoid addressing this problem, which obviously I knew in the back of my mind was mounting up and up and up. But it allowed me just to continue and just sweep it all away. Now, by the time I finished gambling, and by the time I actually turned around and addressed my gambling debts, like I say, I'd accumulated around £40,000. Now, without going into details of how much I get paid, £40,000 of debt is a huge amount of money, but it's manageable. If I took out a £40,000 bank loan, or £40,000 extension on the mortgage, or whatever, I could afford the repayments on that money. However, as I'm a gambling addict, my money wasn't in a nice, affordable bank loan. What it was a couple of bank loans, which would have been where it all started, a large number of increasingly crap credit cards. You know, you start with the one from your bank, don't you? And then you go through the ranks until eventually you've gone through your marbles and your goldfish of this world, and you're got a Vanquish card with a £100 limit on it. It's also not just the credit cards. There was also payday loans, of course, overdrafts, any form of borrowing, any and every form of borrowing I had. So that immediately made it unaffordable. Not just because I was repaying so many different companies every month, but because some of these companies were charging such extortionate amounts of interest that the money was racking up quicker than I could realistically afford to repay it every month. So what did I do? Well, first thing I did was panic. I cried and drank a lot at kind of the situation that I'd made for myself. But once I'd kind of picked myself up, I knew that I had to address it. There really was no alternative, I couldn't keep my head buried in the sand any longer. The phone calls were coming thick and fast. There was just letters piling up on the doormat every day. I couldn't ignore it anymore. So I had to address it. And that's the first point I will make is if you have a substantial amount of debt, be it from gambling, which if you're watching my videos, it probably is, but from anything, then the first thing I will say is you do have to address it. You have to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, grow some bollocks, and look at it. Get a pen and paper out. Don't get a pen and paper out. Get Excel out, for God's sake, because it's going to be a world of hurt otherwise. Get your laptop out. Get your computer booted up. Do whatever. Get an Excel spreadsheet and write down everything, every penny you owe. Start with the big ones. Start with the bank loans, then the credit cards, and the payday loans, then everything else. All those fucking dodgy overdraft facilities, anything you owe to anyone, unpaid phone bills, unpaid council tax. If you've got any of those, write them down, put them on a sheet, find out exactly how much you owe. Okay, this might involve calling up companies, it might involve just digging out the most recent threatening letter, get a figure, write it down, tally it up, and then cry a bit more and have another drink, because you've had your head buried so long, you have a rough idea in the back of your head how much money you owe. What you also have in the back of your head is a number which you secretly hope it might be, which is obviously a much lower number. But the number you actually owe, I almost guarantee you, will probably be pretty much the sum total of both of those put together. It will certainly be significantly higher than both of them. And it will shock you. It did me. I thought, wow, maybe I owe 20, 25,000. Nope, not far off double that once I'd tallied up everything I owed. But here's the good news. You've made a start. By doing this, you have started your recovery. That is step one. The second most important thing is acknowledge the debt. Acknowledge it's there and acknowledge that you're going to have to pay this back. Now, there are, on occasions, ways in which you don't end up paying all the debt back. You don't end up paying back every penny you owe or every penny each company says you owe, and I'll go into that in future videos. But by and large, you are going to pay most of this money back. There will be, you'll see these adverts normally on social media for these firms that offer to try and write off a significant proportion of your debt. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I've not tried any of these companies, so I'm not saying that none of these will actually do anything positive for you. However, from my reading and from my understanding, most of the time you're going to have to pay your debt back. Bankruptcy is a different issue altogether. Bankruptcy is, it's not something I know a huge amount about, to be completely honest, and if this is an option you want to explore, then do some reading on it. But let's assume that you're going to pay your money back, because ultimately, firstly, I think you probably should, to be honest. I mean, I despise payday lenders. I despise these high interest loans, and I think, you know, you should, at the very least, you should be paying back is the money you borrowed, because actually that's life. So, except that, sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but list all your debts down to the penny, okay, in a spreadsheet. Keep it nice and organised. Except that you're going to have to pay these debts. Then get yourself down to your local shop, petrol station, post office, whatever, and buy a shit ton of stamps, because you're going to need them. What you'll need to do when you're dealing with all this debt is keep a record of everything. Add some columns on to your spreadsheet every time you take a next step in the process. Now, the very first step in the process, and this will be the last thing I talk about in this particular video, the very first step in this process is to contact everyone you owe money to. But do it by post. Keep everything, keep everything written, because then you have a paper trail of where you are with each creditor and what you're doing with them, and you'll know when things are resolved. Write to them, explain your situation. Now, gambling addiction is very much recognised now as a medical issue. It was a mental health problem, basically. So you can actually use a gambling addiction as leverage to say, I'm unable to pay you back at the rate you wish to pay me back. Very sorry. However, be polite. However, what I do want to do is actually come to an arrangement that's mutually agreeable, and please rest assured that I do intend to pay back monies borrowed. I always do that because I think if you show willing, then you're more likely to get a response. If you say, right, there's bollocks, you're not having your money back, then they'll probably sell it to someone else and they'll just hassle you even more. So write to everyone you owe money to, be it the original lender or be it to a debt management company. Now, I'll talk about debt management companies, debt collection agents, or in another time. Some are much easier to deal with, some are much more open to lower offers, but we'll come on to that in a different video. But you write to everyone and you ask for some breathing space. You say, look, this is the situation I'm in. I want to pay back all my creditors, but it's going to take me a while to organise this. Please freeze all charges and all interest on this account for 60 days. 90 days if you're feeling brave, 30 days if you've got a load of time on your hands and you want to get it done. Maybe you're self-isolated or whatever they're calling it for coronavirus. And I'll be honest, people say that there are some companies that don't. I didn't have a single one of my I don't know, 20 accounts, some of which would have been with the same debt collection agencies. Moorcroft, you know, if you're in a lot of debt, you've probably heard of them. But yeah, I didn't get a single one right back and not agree to freeze charges and interest for the requested period. So do that. Now you can breathe. Now you've got time on your hands, okay? And then we move on to working out what we're going to repay and when we're going to repay it and how long it's going to take to repay it. And that's a job for another video. But what I will say, and I touched upon this in a previous video, what you need to accept is that this is going to take a long time to repay. But you can do it so you can actually still live a respectable life. Okay, what you can't do when it comes to repaying creditors is use every single spare penny you have after your essential costs. So once you've paid your rent, your bills, your food, your mortgage, you know, your council tax, your petrol for your work and all the rest of it, and yeah, like I say, food and stuff, you know, you can't leave yourself without a penny, because this is going to take a little while to repay. And if you leave yourself without a penny to spend on frivolous stuff, to spend on new clothes, to spend on a couple of pints at the weekend, to spend on cigarettes if you're a smoker, then you are going to fail. You are going to miss payments, and then the whole thing falls apart, and all the effort you've gone into getting organised and getting prepared and setting everything up will fall apart, and you'll have to start again. So that's a good bit of good news, really, is that once this is set up, if you do it correctly and you're honest and you're open with your creditors and you make fair, reasonable offers and you explain your situation, you will get to continue to live a fair lifestyle. You won't get to live luxuriously, and yeah, you will have to give out what would otherwise be, you know, part of your disposable income every month to repay your debts. But you'll be making progress. You'll be making great strides forward. If you're not borrowing anymore and you're repaying, there's something incredibly satisfying about that. Anyway, that's enough for this video. It just serves as a little bit of an introduction to this little series I'm going to do about debt management and managing gambling debts. I hope this is going to be helpful to all of you. If you haven't subscribed already, then please do so. Stick the notification bell on, and then obviously you'll get notified next time I put up a video. Thanks very much for watching. Have a great day. And yeah, like I say, you can sort this. You know, it's not insurmountable. So take the first step, stop stressing, and yeah, you'll soon be sleeping better before you know it. Anyway, catch you on the next one, guys.